daily dose of practical wit and wisdom with a professional educator and trainer, Amazon best-selling author, United States Marine, television and radio host, Paul G. Markle. Each episode will focus on positive and productive ways to strengthen your mindset and help you improve your relationships, career goals, and overall well-being. Please welcome your host, Paul G. Markle.
Hello, welcome back to Morning Mindset. And once again, I'd like to thank you for joining me. Sometimes I feel like Bob Ross when I'm doing the show. I'm like, and thank you for being with me. I am not Bob Ross. I'm nowhere near that nice or patient of a human being as Bob Ross was, or at least as he portrayed himself on The Joy of Painting. Today we're going to talk about absolutes. How many of you have dealt in or had to deal with absolutes? Whether it's in your family life or your career or what have you. And when I say absolutes, I mean using the words always and never, or always or never. And whenever you say never blank or always blank, you're setting yourself up to be wrong. Now, as a person who's been involved in the martial endeavors, shall we say. I became a United States Marine in 1987, and actually a year before that, I took my first professional firearms training class. I did a 40-hour professional firearms training class, and I know a lot of you may not be gun people or gun savvy, but allow me a moment. Whenever you say never do blank or always do blank, you're setting yourself up for failure. I'll give you a really super simple example. When you are holding a firearm has a muzzle. That's in the front. That is the dangerous end. That's the part that the bullet comes out of. Now, you may say, always point your muzzle where? Some people will say, always point your muzzle either downrange at the target, or if you don't have a target, always point it down. Always, 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 muzzle down, muzzle down, muzzle down. Some people will say, always muzzle up, always up, 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 up. And both of those people are wrong. Both of those pieces of advice are wrong because they are absolutes. I'll give you a great example. If you're a homeowner, if you're a mom or a dad, and you keep a firearm, for instance, a handgun. You keep a handgun at home for self-protection to protect your home and your family. And you have a gun in your hand and you're not pointing it at a target and something goes wrong. They crash in the night. Everyone's scared. Your kids run into your bedroom, what have you. You pick up the gun, you're pointing it, and you realize, well, there's nothing for me to point it at yet, or there might be people I don't want to point it at in front of me. So what have I always been taught? Muzzle down, always, absolute. So I muzzle down towards the ground. But I'm a mom or I'm a dad, and what is down there around my legs? What's clinging to my right leg? My 3-year-old daughter is clinging to my right leg. Is it a good or a bad idea to point your pistol at the top of your 3-year-old daughter's head? I'm going to say that's a bad idea. But when you deal with absolutes, always, 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 you will do things that maybe you shouldn't have done. You say, okay, Paul, I'm not really a gun person. What's your point there? Well, my point is that what you should be doing instead is thinking with a gun in your hand and realizing what's going on around you and being aware of your surroundings and pointing the muzzle of the gun in the appropriate direction, whether that is forward or straight up or straight down, because it's not always going to be the same. It could be a different situation. Maybe you are a mom or a dad and all of your kids are upstairs sleeping in their bedrooms and you hear something outside. You know, that noise, the trash can falls over or the dog barks and you don't know why, but you know something is up. So you take your pistol, you go downstairs and you're walking around checking, because you can't call the police every time a dog barks or every time a trash can falls over, can you? Well, you probably shouldn't. And you've been taught muzzle up, always muzzle up. So you point your muzzle directly up. You're walking around on the first floor of your home. What's directly above you? All of your children's bedrooms. Believe you me, basic interior home construction is not going to stop. It may slow down, but it's not going to stop a bullet if you negligently launch one. So do you want to be pointing your gun straight up when the people that you love are above you? Probably not. So you have to be thinking. Beware of the tendency to embrace absolutes, as in always, always, and never, never. I'll give you another good example. If you have children in there in the public school system, I feel sorry for you today. I feel very fortunate that my children are all grown adults now, and I don't have to deal with any type of a school system, public or private, anymore. The zero tolerance policies. Yes, we have allowed our nation to embrace, in our schools and our workplaces and so forth, zero tolerance. We have a zero tolerance policy on drugs or fighting or whatever. And you say, well, that's good because zero tolerance keeps our children safe in school. Does it really keep your kids safe in school? Or does the zero tolerance policy mean the kids that get sent to school with cough drops by their moms and dads end up going to the principal's office? You're like, oh, that would never happen. Oh, that has happened. Or the kids are sent to school with whatever. They have seasonal allergies, so their mom or their dad gives them the Benadryl or what have you, and they get in trouble. Does that happen? Yeah, it happens all the time. How about zero tolerance weapons policies? And you're like, okay, when is this? Kid unpacks his lunch and his mom has packed a little knife to peel the apple or cut the apple or what have you, or they chewed a gun into the shape, or a Pop-Tart. They chewed a gun into the shape of a Pop-Tart. That would be an interesting thing. I'd like to see that. Chewed a Pop-Tart in the shape of a gun. Or the kid has a T-shirt on with crossed rifles and it says U.S. Marine Corps. And they call the sheriff because we have a zero tolerance policy on weapons. And that's a picture of a weapon. Zero tolerance is an absolute, and it allows for both tyrannical behavior and intellectually lazy behavior. Because if you embrace absolutes, then you don't have to think. You don't have to apply logical, reasonable, rational thinking. You don't have to do any of that. You can just point to a rule book and say, well, it says here never, or it says here always. And I'm not going to actually apply analytical thought to this situation because that would require effort on my part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply tyrannical behavior, which we see. Do I need to tell you that there's tyrannical and intellectually lazy behavior on the part of school administrators going on all over our nation? You can work the Google machine, look it up. Absolutes instead of embracing absolutes because they give you they free you from the need to think. And that's what absolutes do. They free you from the need to think. Absolutes instead should be treated like natural, inalienable rights. Let's go all the way back to the times of the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights and so forth. Natural and inalienable rights were supposed to be few and far between. Not everything you want or desire or like is supposed to be a right. Now, today we have everybody thinks that anything that they want is their right to have, and the government should give them that thing. But the fact is, if we go back to the concept of natural and inalienable rights, they weren't supposed to be plenty. They were supposed to be few. And when it comes to absolutes, is there room for absolutes in our lives? Of course there is. You absolutely should look both ways before crossing the street. You absolutely should never chew on razor blades, okay? You absolutely should never stick your finger into a light socket. Those are some absolutes. But when it comes to behavior, when it comes to whether or not it's a behavior at work, actions at work, anytime you run into absolutes, be careful. Because absolutes often, instead of inspiring analytical and rational thought, do the exact opposite. I don't want someone, it's like with our previous example, with a gun in their hand. I don't want them to be a robot. I want them to be a thinking human being. I want them to be able to think with a gun in their hand. I want my children's teachers and principals and administrators, I want them to analyze a situation on its own individual merits rather than just doing some type of a knee-jerk fallback to a zero-tolerance policy. So, beware of absolutes. When you embrace absolutes, you're almost all the time absolutely wrong. All right, that's all I got to say about that. If you want to hear more of my thoughts about child rearing and about raising fearless children in a cowardly world, I have a little book called Team Honey Badger, Raising Fearless Children in a Cowardly World, and I have done so. I raised 3 fearless children to adulthood, and I've got some tips and tactics for you to do that. And you can find Team Honey Badger, written by me, Paul Markle, on Amazon as a paperback or as a Kindle version. So shop around to your heart's delight. We will talk to you again real soon.
Thank you for spending time with us today. To get show notes, submit a topic request, and for more from your host, Paul G. Markle, visit morningmindsetpodcast.com. That's morningmindsetpodcast.com. Please leave a review for this podcast on your favorite podcast player. We appreciate your time and effort, and we look forward to reading your honest feedback.